So there are 2 new chapters for the Chaquetrix comic that have been out, and of course they are jam-packed with Easter eggs and pieces from the fandom, and of course we will be reviewing all of it and asking questions about them because duh, we're Galvans. If this is your first time watching a video like this, feel free to subscribe to the channel. Here we will be breaking down an official comic for the Chaquetrix Fan Omnitrix, a watch that spawns female aliens for Ben Tennyson. And to read the official release, feel free to check out Trix the Alien's Twitter. Links in the description. Firstly, the cover of chapter 2 is already showing up that this chapter is going to be a Chaquetrix original piece of lore. It has a picture of Pink Azimuth, Albedo, Mayax, and a mysterious plumber who we will soon actually find out the identity of. Chapter 2 starts with showing a pretty unique opening, showing us visuals of Galvan Prime in the year 1972. A plumber agent enters the lab of Azimuth, where we can see the trio of Azimuth, Albedo, and Mayax working on a project. The laboratory has a similar design to that of the Omniverse laboratory rather than the Alien Force design, because we can see this with the floor patterns and the skyline that comes in, of course. And before I forget, Mayax also takes a very different look as well, especially in relation to her original series counterparts. Almost like an attractive Chimera sui generis lab assistant, but Trix probably doubled down on the designs we got from UAF and Omniverse. It does sort of remind me of the new DD that Dexter had in Dexter's lab. Upon the initial meeting of Azimuth, we get to see where he is wearing gold and green colors, flexing a sort of merger between his Alien Force design and his classic design color palette. He is working on a machine that is changing the color of a Galvan, which we later learn that the test subject is Albedo. But Azimuth gets interrupted by this random plumber agent. I like that even though we have the change of the plumber suit quite a few times in the Prime continuity, Trix stuck with the legacy design for this moment instead of the white and red model. Only true OGs would remember that. And only true OGs like this video, by the way. The plumber leaves this mysterious piece of tech that he was sent to deliver on Azimuth's desk. He actually asks Azimuth what he's doing. Now, Azimuth being the crazy genius that he isn't just changing the color of Albedo's clothes, but he's transforming Galvan pigment down to basically the molecular level, which is absolutely amazing. He's indecisive on which colors to pick. And here we can get to actually see that Albedo's design is reminiscent of his Omniverse design as well. We can see it here on this panel. I can already tell that the artists have a strong love for the Omniverse designs. I don't blame them, me too. The plumber suggests to Azimuth to try the fuchsia color, and Azimuth has a sort of eureka moment, and he tells Albedo to get the hell out of there, and he hops in. So I love that Albedo doesn't like call the name of the original pigment that he was from, like to just say that it's green, but he shouts the colored code, and that was pretty funny. It's a very Galvan thing to do. However, you need to check right now if you're actually subscribed. Sometimes those funky things happen where you're not, but you should check and subscribe if you aren't. Azimuth hops into the machine and then has the plumber agent change him into the fuchsia pigment. He now fully resembles the Chaquetrix Galvan that we have seen all over the place. However, he's still missing one very key piece to his fit. He asks the plumber what his name is, and we can see that it's actually Grandpa Max, where he looks a lot younger, maybe in his early 20s. Now Azimuth kind of proceeds to have a glazing session of the goat of all plumbers, which is still kind of crazy because he seems to still be very young. He also brings up the fact that Grandpa Max is going out with other species besides humans. I like this line. It kind of shows up how much of a dog Max actually is, and Azimuth probably heard all of this from Xylene. Azimuth calls him a man of culture, and this is pretty funny, and he brings him into the lab to show off a piece of tech that he's working on. The mini lab sort of reminds me of the one he showed Ben in Ultimate Alien, where he gave him the flashback about the creation of the Sword of Ascalon, but sort of redesigned to have a lot less tech and be, a lot more spacious. It also does have one central focus on this piece of machinery, and Azimuth gets to showing off the Omnitrix to Max Tennyson, which is quite interesting because this isn't what we end up with in the canonicity of the Chaquetrix. Max does suggest that Azimuth creates an alien that adapts to his needs instead of turning him into an alien, and we can really get to see how much of a freaking gooner Max actually is. And the worst part is that Azimuth actually freaking agrees and starts to work on changes immediately. He teleports Albedo in and starts googling names when he rolls the dice and hits the Chaquetrix. They change the color and the design, and we finally get back to the present. Going back to the forest where we see a long-haired Gwen, and it's actually a design taken from concept pieces from the episode Washington BC, where we get to see Gwen with a ponytail. I like that they actually brought this in. He comes in trying to put out the flames, just like how she does in the Prime continuity, and basically we end up with a frame for frame recreation of Gwen meeting Ben for the first time, or in this case, Chaquetrix Heat Blast. Heart Blast? I think it's Heart Blast. However, Gwen sprays Heart Blast with a fire extinguisher and prepares to smash her head in, but like in Classic, she is halted by Ben, who lets her know that it's not a monster, and chapter 2 ends right there. Chapter 3 now begins with a really unique cover page showing the escaped pod leaving Vilgax's ship in the dust as it heads to Earth. An interstellar battle begins between Xylene's ship and Vilgax's spaceship. Line for line similarities come in the opening pages of the comic.
Hull damage 20%. Weapon system still operational. I have come too far to be denied.
Of course, a few different angles to convey this. However, a thing that does stand out to me is that this Vilgax design is very different. They take a very similar design to the Omniverse Vilgax that comes in before the creation of the Plumbers. Another Chimera sui generis approaches, and to be honest, he looks like he should have a crowd cheering for him. Let's see if we can get that in. And it's actually Gax Bravo, who seems to be Vilgax's older brother. I'm just calling him Gax Bravo because I don't know his name. Vilgax explains that he wants the Omnitrix not to satisfy his desires, but to build an army. He might actually end up with something that he got in the final battle in Alien Force with the Bioids actually. I want to talk about the relationship of the Squid Brothers, but I might save this bit for later down in the video. Now of course the command center is blown up, and we flip back to Earth where Ben gives his explanation to Gwen for how he got the watch.
Fell from the sky and almost munched me, except that it wasn't a meteor or a satellite, but this cool watch.
And Grandpa Max shows up, and won't you look at that? It's no Hawaiian shirt, he's wearing a shirt of hearts. That's pretty cool. I can already smell it. Grandpa Max is going to be polygamous. He is shocked to see Chaquetrix Heat Blast, and that's when he says his line.
What in blazes?
Directly from the show. And then he sees the watch on Ben's hand and he realizes that it's Chaquetrix, and oh boy, you know, I just really like the internal realization that Max has about the watch, where, you know, in comparison to Classic, it is alluded that he does know a lot more about the Omnitrix than he's letting on, but in this specific case, it's kind of showing that he does know a lot more because he was probably there in concept. Cutting back to the ship, we can see that Vilgax is badly damaged as he is in Classic. However, Gunnar Gax has lost an arm, which means that we definitely will be seeing him again much sooner, probably before the season finale. However, Vilgax sends out the space droid to Earth to find Ben and the Chaquetrix. A very short 2 chapters, but it's pretty interesting. And I know that this version of Vilgax, Gax Bravo, was a fan created component of this comic. Not sure if Trix made it, but it made it into the comic, and his dynamic with his brother is pretty interesting. He seems like a fun-loving older brother who's a lot more laid back than his serious, goal-oriented younger brother. I feel like he might side with Ben, or at least have more empathy for him than the original Vilgax, as both of them want the Chaquetrix. This dynamic though is definitely going to either blossom into a harsh conflict among brothers or a dangerous duo for Team Tennyson to take on. Not sure how Kid Ben will fare being double teamed by these 2 green squids, but we shall see. There are still more chapters to come, so let's wait patiently and see what happens. And make sure you're subscribed for this week's deep dive into the Nemitrix.